Hello and welcome to Practically Effective. This is a podcast by Will and I about effects, props and stunts in various films. And today we are talking about Blade Runner. So Will.
So Joe.
Blade Runner.
I have a question for you.
Good grief. What? No, this isn't how it works. I always make you say things for 20 minutes at the beginning.
Do androids dream of electric sheep?
That's a very good question. How would you know if the sheep was electric?
You just poke at its control panel.
Yeah, because...
We'll talk about this when we get onto our famous section in the book.
Because, well, in a cruel twist of fate, you have read the book this week.
I have, because I really wanted to read the book.
Without...
They have many electric animals in it, including an electric sheep.
Yep.
They have an electric horse. They have an electric sheep. They have an electric goat.
Great. Electric.
They have an electric toad. The electric toad is very important.
Is it because it goes in the water?
No.
Because I'd be like, I've made a beautiful creature, an electric toad, and then it would just hop into a lake and explode.
They have electric flies. I think they have electric fish as well.
Electric flies?
Yeah.
Why?
You buy electric flies to feed to your electric toad.
Why? Why would you buy an electric toad if then you had to buy electric flies to feed it?
Well, we'll get onto this in the book section.
Alright, so first we have to talk a bit about the film Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I assume. So, Will, we followed our classic tradition
of watching completely different versions of the film.
If it's possible to watch different versions, we will.
Yeah.
So, I watched the director's cut.
Yeah.
And you watched...
I watched the original theatrical version.
What are the differences?
In the theatrical one,
yep,
it has voiceover narration.
At the beginning and end?
Sort of throughout, mostly at the beginning, and then there's a couple of other bits in the middle as well.
Yeah.
Also, the ending is different. And also, the original theatrical one doesn't have his unicorn dream.
Yeah. So you get an extra scene at the ending?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Because director's cut ends with them coming out of the lift and he sees the little unicorn.
Yeah, there's an extra scene after that.
What happens in that scene?
Basically, so you know like those really cheesy romantic films where there's like two young lovers driving along in their car and they're like laughing and stuff?
Yep.
You basically get that scene but with Deckard and Rachel.
Oh, great. Apparently they used leftover footage from The Shining in that scene as the scenery.
The scenery, it looked kind of similar,
yeah.
I can see that.
So you mentioned the voiceover.
Yeah. It's a bit unnecessary.
What does he do? Just
explain. So at the beginning, you get Harrison Ford introducing the character of Deckard.
Right.
But he doesn't tell you anything that you don't get told in the next 5 minutes.
So what kind of stuff? Like he's an
ex-Blade Runner? So he says I'm an ex-Blade Runner, and then I hunted down replicants.
Is this over the picture, the opening?
The opening when he's going to the sushi bar.
Oh, that bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So you still get the cityscape, and you get the
you get
bit
the
with Leon,
bit with the eye,
and then Leon shooting the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it? So basically, I heard when they did the test screenings for the original Blade Runner, that people were very confused and no one really understood it.
Mm.
And I think also I heard somewhere that it was 4 hours long, the cut, and people thought it was very long and very boring.
Huh.
So the studio made them do this. So apparently Harrison Ford, this was a rumour, I don't think this is true, but Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott both hated the idea of this voiceover. So when Harrison Ford was brought in to do it, he did it as blandly as possible.
Yeah, it sounds really bland and unenthusiastic.
But he was hoping they wouldn't use it because he did it so badly.
If Ridley Scott didn't like it, why did they still have him do it?
Because the studio said he had to.
I'd have thought Ridley Scott would have enough pull by the time he made this.
Well, what else had he made? He made Alien.
Exactly, which is quite successful.
But I don't think he made much else. I don't think he was a household name at the time.
Mm.
But if your test screenings come back negatively, then you've got to do something about it, haven't you?
Yeah.
And apparently it was very badly received at the time.
Yeah.
No one liked it. Well,
what did they say?
It got mixed reviews from what I read. Alright, I read some stuff. Should we do this now?
Do it now, yeah.
Alright. I wrote down, for everyone at home, some quotes that I pulled from reviews at the time, and this is clearly the most interesting thing we've ever talked about. And basically, Will, I want you to tell me, do you think that this is...
a valid critique?
Yeah. So, okay. 2 things to note. First off, pretty much all of these reviews said the special effects and, what you saw was stunning. Right? Second thing to note, the studio marketed this movie as an action-adventure film.
Oh, that was a bad idea.
Yeah. So, first quote I've got is, Blade Runner is a stunningly interesting visual achievement. That's not an insult. It's Blade Runner
It's a stunningly interesting visual achievement.
2 stars! Blade Runner is a stunningly interesting visual achievement, but a failure as a story.
I don't think that's a... Well, it depends, because, like, if you just look at, like, the base storyline, like, the most basic level you could look at it, it's just a story about a guy who goes to hunt down
robots
and doesn't even do much investigating or anything. He just finds them and kills them.
And he only kills 2 robots.
Yeah.
Almost nothing is explained coherently, and the plot has great lapses, from the changeable nature of one key character to the frequent disappearances of another.
Well, I think it's like... So, we went and saw Mother the other day, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Which I was very pleased about.
Yeah.
But we were talking about that, and we were saying how if you try to take it literally and just take it what you were shown, it would just make no sense.
Zero sense.
You can say a similar thing about Blade Runner. If you just try and watch it, as like just a popcorn flick or something, then I still think it's a good film if you do that. But there's certainly a lot of criticisms you can have of it if you just do that.
Yeah, obviously deeper themes is amazing, and when you think about it, it's amazing. But I think on the surface, it isn't that good.
I think it's all right.
It's all right, but if it didn't have the underlying themes, I wouldn't give it a second look.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
The end of the film is both gruesome and sentimental. Mr. Scott can't have it both ways, any more than he can expect over-decoration to carry a film that has neither strong characters nor a strong story. That hasn't stopped him from trying, even if it perhaps should have.
But I think the ending is kind of gruesome and sentimental. And I think it does work.
So you can have it both ways. Yeah. Take that, reviewer. I don't agree that it was over-decorated.
I think it's just because it looks very nice and flashy doesn't mean it's over. Like,
no.
The nice and flashiness is not there for the sake of it.
No, it's there to build the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the best things about Blade Runner. It builds an amazing world. And last one. Oh, well, that's barely one. Someone criticising the slow pace called it Blade Crawler.
Wow.
What a witty critic.
Blade Crawler.
Yep, because they didn't do much running well. Alright, where do we go?
I'm starting at the beginning makes more sense.
Alright, so the beginning...
I like the opening shot and the music.
That opening shot is brilliant.
And I would also say that of the films we've done so far, so Alien has good music, but the music is clearly there to bolster the visuals.
Yeah.
Like, if you were just to listen to the music by itself, I don't think it would be very good.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park, which we've done, and Blade Runner are the only two that we've done that I would say just have good soundtracks in their own right.
Yeah, I think you're right. Alien contributes to the story, but isn't much on its own.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park, I think, sometimes steals the scene, the music.
Okay,
because the music is just so big and amazing, and I love the music to Jurassic Park. But Blade Runner, the music... I watched this twice in the lead up to this, and I didn't notice it the first time. But then, paying attention to it the second time, it is great, but it kind of blends in.
Yeah.
You don't notice how great it is unless you're really looking for it. And I think that's the best thing a soundtrack can be. Amazing, but not so amazing that it's in your face.
In the way,
yeah. I agree. Best music of anything we've done, I think. Even though I'd probably rather... If I had an iPod and I was putting film music on it, I'd probably rather listen to the Jurassic Park theme. Just because I love it. But, to complement the film, Blade Runner does it best.
Let's see, what's the very first scene apart from that big opener?
Leon being... what's the word? Voigtkampf?
Voigtkampf test, yeah.
Tested. And him and... What's the other guy's name? He has a name. Holden?
The guy who gets shot.
The guy who's testing him, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think that's Holden, yeah.
Yeah.
The guy in the book, the equivalent guy is called Holden.
Yes, good scene, bad scene?
It suddenly introduces you to the whole idea of Voigtkampf testing.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think it's a good opening scene.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think no, I don't hate Blade Runner. I like Blade Runner. But... that's all I have to say. I think the first half is stronger than the second half. I think there's weaknesses.
What scenes in particular are you thinking of?
So, let me think. I don't buy the romance at all between Deckard and Rachel.
Right.
Both of them seem void of all emotion. And also, there's a very weird scene where, Rachel goes to leave and Harrison Ford is like, no, stay, and then ask me to kiss you.
That is a bit weird, that scene.
Yeah. It's not a very consensual relationship. Some of the stuff with JF, some of it I like. some of it is like, why did Pris paint herself? And why wasn't JF like, this is not a normal thing to do? Because it's not clear whether he knows she's a replicant at that point. He just thinks she's a homeless lady, and then she comes in covered in this weird body paint.
Well, he does figure out that she's a replicant.
Maybe. But it's not clear. And there's other things in it that aren't clear. Like, right at the beginning, Deckard goes... I've realised that half the time I'm calling him Harrison Ford, and half the time I'm calling him Deckard. I'm going to try and call him Deckard. That's his name. It's not, though, is it? His name's Harrison Ford. Anyway, in the scene where Deckard goes to his boss...
Yes.
His boss says, 6 replicants on the ships, 4 of them tried to break into Tyrell
Corp,
and one of them got electrified.
Yeah.
Go and find 4 replicants. Surely it should be go and find 3 replicants, or go and find 5 replicants. Not go and find 4. And the reason for this is there was going to be another android called Mary, who they scrapped due to time, and I don't know whether that's some of the deleted scenes or whether it was lost in the scripting, but I think there are issues with it. It's not a perfect movie, but for the most part, it's very good.
I didn't pick up on that. I didn't notice. I can't add, apparently.
Not a concern for a theoretical physicist. Do you like his detective work, tracking down is it Zora? Is that the snake lady's name?
Oh, he goes to his/its apartment.
Yep.
Finds the snake scale.
Yep, and the photograph as well.
Then, much like in Moonraker, goes to where that was... No, he doesn't go to where that was made, but he finds out who made it. Yeah. Then he goes to where it was made.
No, first he uses the computer, and he analyses the picture in like a 3D and finds the woman with the tattoo of the snake. Yeah.
Yeah, then he goes to where it was made.
Yep.
Oh yeah, in that scene where he's interrogating the guy who made it.
Yep.
I'm sure the lip sync was off when I was watching it.
Yeah, I think it was as well. Yeah. That happens a couple of times actually. Yeah. Again, not a perfect film. It's also a bit, if we're going into continuity for a second, where there's a car driving through the rain, or like it's rain in the front of a scene, and the car drives along with no rain coming on it because it's behind the rain machine, and then it pulls in underneath the rain machine. So I think when you're looking at movie detectives, right, I think the rule should be for whether they're a good detective is, would you be able to follow the clues through? And if you can, as a layman, he's not a good detective. But if he makes logical leaps and sensible deductions, then he's a smart detective.
Yeah.
So Deckard, does he do anything that we couldn't have just done?
No. The only thing is he happens to know someone who can identify the snake scale.
Yeah.
Which is not a logical deduction or whatever. It's just knowing the right people.
Yeah. So he goes to the apartment that was on the video. He finds the photo by looking in a drawer.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd have noticed the snake scale in the bath. I don't know why I'd pay that much attention to the bath.
But I suppose that's maybe the detective element.
Oh, snake
scale.
Although he thinks it's a fish, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
As if they had filled the bath and filled it with fish. Yeah. They just had a little aquarium.
But I think then you'd analyse the photo.
Yeah.
You'd look at the photo. Well, I'm not sure I would have looked at the photo that closely.
I think that's skill on his part because he looks in the reflection and round corners and stuff. Yeah. So that's good. What I do like about him though is that when he finds Zora, he doesn't just go in all guns. He gets in under the guise of being, what is it? A representative of something, a union,
a trade union or something.
That's it. Yeah. He kind of goes in to double check that she is a replicant before he opens fire, and I like that instead of just going in all guns blazing.
But in the book, he has to do the void conf test on all of them.
Yeah.
Beforehand, yeah.
Okay. Because
he has to make sure, and it's kind of weird. When he's giving it to them, he's not even acting particularly cautious or anything. He doesn't even get his gun out before he does it or anything.
Yeah.
He just goes up to them and
it's are you a replicant? Are you?
The only exception to that is the final 3.
Yeah.
Because in the book there's 6 of them. There's 8 of them originally, then Holden kills 2. And then Holden gets killed, or not killed, but severely injured by one of them. And then his list of targets goes to Deckard.
Yeah.
And he then goes after the remaining 6.
Should we do our famous segment in the book?
In the book, okay.
Alright, since we've started in the book.
We need some intro music.
In the book.
In the book.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. And then you open a big leather-bound book that's called In the Book. Chapter 3, Blade Runner.
Or Do androids dream of electric sheep?
Alright, hang on. Are you going to spoil the book?
Yes, I am going to spoil the book.
Because I spoiled Jurassic Park.
You did.
And then I spoiled as much as I could on The Running Man because I hadn't finished it. So yeah, go for it, full spoilers.
So yes, I am going to spoil things. Well, in the book, the first thing is he's married in the book.
Right.
So basically, okay, there's like a lot to explain. So, in the book, basically, it's very important in the book that you own and care for an animal.
A real animal or a replicant animal?
A real animal.
Okay.
But Deckard only has an electric sheep.
Okay.
But the thing is, he doesn't tell anyone that it's fake.
Yeah.
Because he'll think that they'll look down at him.
Yeah.
Because he owns a fake animal rather than a real one.
Right.
So, like, when you're explaining it like this, it sounds really weird. Like,
I'm on board so far.
Deckard only had a fake sheep and he wanted a real sheep, so he killed some androids. Okay, so
I'm just imagining that in this world, like, you go down the pub and like, alright, well, you know what I heard? You know, Rick, his sheep is electric. I'm never speaking to him again. He had us fooled for a while, but I saw him plugging it in the other night.
But it's to the point where the repair agencies for the electric animals will dress up like vets when they go and visit you.
Yeah.
So that your neighbours and things think that they're a vet rather than a repair people.
That's amazing. So is this care for animals, is that like a civic duty, or is it just like...
Yes. In fact, it used to be, in the book they mentioned it used to be illegal not to have an animal and care for it.
So everyone has an animal?
Yeah.
Is it just any animal?
Yeah, any animal.
Cool.
Like Deckard has a sheep, his neighbour has a horse.
Yeah.
There's some people with like cats.
Yeah.
Like squirrels and things.
Cool.
Just any animal.
So why? Or do we never find out?
No, we do know, but that comes on to like the themes. There's so much to talk about.
Alright, go.
It all links together so much.
So okay. Deckard's caring for his electric sheep.
Well, again, in the book, he's not retired at the beginning. Okay. It's not like he gets called back into retirement for one last mission or something. Yeah. That's his job, and he's still employed there. And he's quite happy with his job, really.
Yeah.
So in the book, he's called a bounty hunter rather than a Blade Runner.
Right.
But also that means that he gets paid a very small salary, but then gets paid a lot more for each kill he makes. So Holden gets almost killed, and he's in the hospital for like a month. And so the replicants that he was tasked to kill gets passed on to Deckard. Mm-hmm. First of all, he goes to the company that makes them.
Yeah.
The company that makes
classic
them.
Moonraker stuff.
No, he gets sent there by his boss.
James Bond from Moonraker.
The company that makes them is not the Tyrell Corporation.
Right.
It is. So the name of the company may be interesting to connoisseurs of memes.
I'm ready.
Because the name of the company is the Rosen Association.
Headed by their founder, Michael Rosen.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there is a Rachel, but it's Rachel Rosen. But anyway, they have just created this new type of android, the Nexus 6, which is the same as they are in the film. Mm-hmm. But they're like a relatively new thing.
Yeah.
And basically they're not sure if the Void Kampf test will work with them.
Okay, yeah.
So he goes there to test whether it will work with one of those.
Right.
And basically what the Rosen Association do is they give him Rachel to test it on. And it comes up that she is an android.
Right.
But then they try and convince him that actually Rachel's a human and the test has given a false positive.
Oh, I see.
And that therefore you can't go around using it because you might falsely identify someone.
So the Rosen peeps don't like Deckard.
They don't like him, no. They don't like...
Makes perfect sense because he murders
them.
He
murders the stuff they make, yeah. And then, here's where the importance of living animals comes in. Once Deckard figures out that she is actually an android and they've been trying to con him, they say, if you go back and say that your test gives false positives, we'll give you this owl.
That's the best. There should be more of that, inventive bribery.
Apparently, owls were thought to be extinct, and this is like the last real owl.
So no one would believe him. He'd go down to the pub and be like, guys, I've got rid of the electric sheep, I've got a real owl. And they'd be like, Rick, the owls are gone.
We don't believe you. And then it turns out the owl is fake as well. So
does he to avoid camp test now?
But anyway, so then the first android that he comes across. So his boss tells him that there's so the Soviet Union is still a thing in the book.
Cool.
So his boss tells him that there's a policeman coming from the Soviet Union to help him.
Yep.
And he meets up with that policeman, and it turns out that policeman is one of the replicants he was sent to kill. So that's the first one he kills. And he does say something about that he thought that one would be the most difficult one, because that's the one that killed Holden. Or not kill. I keep saying killed Holden. That's the one that wounded Holden.
Yep.
Oh, and also Rachel then phones him up and offers to help.
Does Rachel Rosen know she's an android?
Yes, she knows she's an android in this one.
Cool.
He turns down Rachel's help at this point.
Okay.
He goes over to the next one, who's like an opera singer.
Right.
And what?
Is it Dynamo?
No, it's not Dynamo.
Because he's covered in light bulbs, so he might be a replicant. Does he have a little car?
It's a she.
Oh, that spoils my theory. I was going to make a fanfic crossover called The Blade Running Man.
Her name was Luba Luft. And she's very important, actually.
Carry on. Just know that I'm imagining her as Dynamo this whole time.
You know, Deckard falls in love with her.
I'm not surprised.
Who wouldn't fall in love with Dynamo?
Well, if you listen to our episode 5, definitely us.
Anyway, so he goes along to the opera house, and he's very impressed with her singing, and he's like, oh, because apparently he's like a fan of opera.
Great.
Then he goes to interrogate her in her dressing room backstage, and he uses the void conf test, but then she doesn't believe that he's a policeman,
right, and
calls a policeman. And as you can imagine, Deckard is like, okay, call the policeman, because I am of the police. And then the policeman arrives and also doesn't believe him and arrests him.
Right.
And then, so Deckard is like, okay, let me phone the police department and we'll clear this up. But then that basically doesn't work.
What? Does he not have any ID on him?
He does, but the policeman won't believe him. So they take him to the police station. Yeah. But they don't take him to his police station. Yeah. They take him to a different one in the same city. And so he's very confused that there are apparently 2 police forces in the same city that aren't aware of each other.
They don't talk to each other, yeah.
So when the chief detective there finds out he's a bounty hunter, he takes him into his office and starts talking to him saying, "No, I know all the bounty hunters in this city and you're not one of them." Deckard gives him his list of targets, and the detective looks through them and realizes that one of them is him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so he calls in one of his bounty hunters with the intention of testing basically all 3 people there. Yeah. Deckard and the detective and the new bounty hunter guy, whose name is Resh, I think. And basically, when Resh goes out of the room to get the equipment, the detective and Deckard have a conversation where the detective confesses he is a replicant, and also Resh is a replicant, and that in fact everybody in the building is a replicant.
Why? Why is there a replicant police force?
Well, apparently it turns out to be their safe space, basically. A place for them to organise from and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so in the movie, replicants are outlawed on Earth. Yeah. Is that the case in the book?
They are also outlawed on Earth, yeah.
So why would they take him back to their replicant base? Why wouldn't the officer be like, "Oh, you're a Blade Runner, murderer of replicants, huh? Well, why don't you just come down this dark alley with me and my gun?"
Later on, they talk about that. That was mentioned.
Okay, go on.
But basically then, the detective tries to kill Deckard, but Resh then kills the detective because Resh thinks he's a human.
So Resh is a replicant but doesn't know. Ooh.
That actually plays onto the themes. Yeah. But basically Deckard is convinced that he's a replicant because he's acting all sort of replicant-y and doesn't seem to care about killing people and things like that.
When you say that Deckard keeps talking to people and working out if they're a replicant, I'm just imagining that he's going, "Are you a replicant?" And then they go, "Yes, I am, and everyone in this building is. I'm so sorry."
But that kind of struck me as a bit like a James Bond villain telling him the entire evil plot.
So is it like Deckard is like using smart questioning to work out, or is it just...
In that case, the detective just says, I'm a replicant and there's nothing you can do about it.
So just sidle up to him and hey Deckard, we're all replicants. Everyone in this city is a replicant.
But basically he says that he's saying that once Vesh finds out Vesh is a replicant, then he might just start killing everyone because
he won't be able to cope. He'll have a little mental breakdown. Yeah. Like, my life has been a lie. My sheep is probably electric.
So then Vesh, still thinking he's a human, basically pretends to like escort Deckard out of the building, you know.
Yeah.
Both of them then go back to the opera house and follow Luba Luft, who's gone to a museum, an art museum, and confront her there. And there's like this whole scene about where Deckard basically like is like, why am I doing this?
Yep. Should have taken that owl.
Yeah. Should have just taken the owl. And then, well, there's this whole discussion about basically Vesh wants to kill her there and then. Yeah. But Deckard wants to give her the void comp test first.
Okay.
And
hang on, didn't you do that earlier?
Only like a couple of questions. He didn't finish it.
Cool.
But then Vesh just kills her.
Great.
Which leads Deckard to think that he is a replicant because he doesn't care about. Because the main thing in the book is the only real difference between the replicants and the humans is empathy.
Okay.
And there's a whole like kind of pseudo religion that I'll get onto about empathy and things. And then Deckard, I'm pretty sure he gives Vesh the void comp test at that point.
Okay.
And figures out that he is a human.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Figures out that he's a human.
Okay, carry on.
And then he realizes that. So the reason he thought that Vesh was a replicant was because he didn't care about killing replicants. Mm-hmm. But then Deckard realizes that actually it's the fact that he does care about killing replicants is the weird thing. And the normal human response is not to care about killing replicants.
Yeah, because they're just machines.
Yeah.
It'd be like me caring about you killing a fax machine.
Yeah, basically.
Like, well, the fax machine...
The fax machine didn't do anything wrong.
It was entirely human, except it couldn't empathise with me. We did so much together.
But anyway. So the replacement for JF is a guy named Isidore. Mm-hmm. So basically, there's like radioactive dust everywhere, essentially.
Great.
Earth is basically so irradiated that if you just can't live there, essentially. Yeah. Basically, every month, I think it is, on Earth, you have to have essentially an IQ test. And if they figure out that you've been mutated too much, then they class you as this special. Right. And then you can't get a job or you get outcast by society and things. Yeah. So in the film, JF has this illness that makes him age faster, I think.
Yeah.
And Isidore has this thing that he's special. Mm. He's a bit thick, basically. Yeah. But he does have a job. He works for one of those animal repair companies that pretends to be vets.
Yep.
So it starts off that he has a cat to like take to his company to fix. Yeah. And it turns out when they're trying to fix the cat that it's a real cat.
Whoops.
And it's died.
That shouldn't amuse me as much as it does. Like, how long did it take them to notice?
Well, the owner of the business figured it out pretty quickly.
Yep.
But Isidore didn't figure
where's
it out.
Where's the USB port?
Yeah, basically. Like, there's a bit where Isidore is like looking for the like access port and can't find it, but he thinks it's just because it's so well made.
Great job.
When he goes back to where he lives, he finds that somebody's moved into another apartment, and he goes and welcomes her, and she says her name is Pris.
Yep.
Shock. Horror.
I mean, she's probably human.
Yeah, she's probably a human. So Deckard gets his bounty money for killing the first 3 replicants.
Yep.
And he uses it to buy a goat.
Great.
But like a real goat.
Yeah.
Not an electric goat.
A top-class goat.
A real goat.
Yeah.
But basically, the guy so Deckard wants to buy some rabbits, but the guy in the shop says, I think you don't need rabbits. You're ready to go up to the goat class. So he goes back home to his wife. Some stuff that's not directly related to the plot happens. Basically, the wife really likes the goat. But then Deckard's boss phones up and basically says, "Why have you gone home? There's still 3 more replicants to kill."
Fair enough.
So then he phones up Rachel again and says, "Can you come and help me?"
Yep.
Because by this point he's feeling very shaky. The real reason the boss phones up is to tell him that they have a lead on those new replicants. Yeah. And then says, "You need to do it tonight." And Deckard says, "But I'm tired." And then his boss just says, "No, come and do it now."
Enough tending to your goats.
Yeah. So he goes there with Rachel. Basically, Rachel and Deckard then do the sex. And Rachel lets him know that she was only sent there basically to look at how the Nexus 6s fell. And then basically report back to the Voltron Corporation and say...
So next time
they will...
They can make unstoppable robots.
Yeah, well, it's not like they're trying to take... Well, maybe they are trying to take over the world. But... And then goes to the building where the other 3 androids are. Rachel's left at this point. Basically has like a spiritual moment, like a religious epiphany.
Yep.
But we'll talk more about that later.
Okay.
And kills the Pris android.
Yeah.
Goes to the room, kills the other 2, including Batty, who does not have such a dramatic death in this one. Deckard just shoots him.
He doesn't carry a pigeon around.
He doesn't carry a pigeon around. They don't have like a long protracted fight at the end either.
Yeah.
Deckard just basically goes to the... So what Deckard does is he knocks on the door.
Yeah.
Pretends to be Isidore. Mm-hmm. Basically puts on like his best Isidore voice. And they let him in, and then he just kills them both pretty simply, to be honest.
So how many are left now?
None, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
All dead.
I can count 2.
Oh, and then there's a really big scene about the whole empathy religion turns out to be fake, but we'll talk about that later again.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Turns out that when Deckard was out killing the remaining 3 androids, Rachel went back to his house and killed his goat.
I was sure you were going to say wife. But no, his goat.
Well, actually, Rachel makes a point that Deckard loves the goat more than his wife.
Does he?
It seems so, yeah.
Oh,
but
good.
That's actually an important point.
Yeah.
The last bit of the book is really strange.
Go on.
He goes to the desert.
As you do.
But he's like really conflicted about like killing androids at this point.
Right.
He goes to the desert, has another religious epiphany.
Yep.
Finds a toad, and toads are really important because toads are like a religious symbol, basically. There.
Right.
And toads are also thought to be extinct. So he finds this toad, goes back to his wife. Mm-hmm. His wife figures out that the toad is electric. Yeah, that's basically then Deckard goes to bed, and that's the end
of the book. So, my question is, do the replicants in the book, do they have the other emotions except for empathy?
They have emotions, but basically their emotions are like a purely intellectual thing.
Right.
Like, they feel the emotions, but they don't fully understand them, like...
Oh, so it's like, if this stimulus, then this emotion.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like they don't really fully comprehend it.
Yeah,
like,
they don't feel it, they just know it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's exactly it.
Because I think some of the best performance in the movie is definitely Roy.
Yeah.
And some of his best stuff is after he's just committed a horrible murder.
Yeah.
And he's like, ooh, but I don't feel any emotion. I'm a bit chuffed with that. That's Murder's Go, that was a good one. Like in the lift when he's leaving the Tyrell pyramid. And when he sees Pris's corpse as well, that's another bit. And he's like, maybe this guy has emotion. But then Deckard isn't there to see any of that.
No.
So why is he conflicted about his Deckard?
Well, in the film, Deckard doesn't seem to be as caught up over it.
It all seems to hinge on the romance with Rachel, which I don't buy at all.
Yeah.
So the only way I can make sense of that weird scene, though, in the movie with the, like, now say you want to go to bed with me.
Yeah.
It's because, like, some of the Nexuses are basic pleasure models.
Yeah.
And that's what he seems to be treating her as. Like a basic pleasure model, which is not what love is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's no emotional connect between them.
Whereas in the book, I think he starts to feel an emotional connection with her.
Yeah.
And then it kind of gets very abruptly torn apart when it turns out that she doesn't and can't feel the same way.
Yeah. And hates goats.
Yeah, and hates goats.
So when he gets a goat, this is the most important question of the podcast, does he keep his electric sheep?
He does.
Or does he discard it?
No, he keeps his electric sheep.
Good. I'm glad to hear you.
And when the goat dies, he's like, oh, well, at least I still have my electric sheep.
Yep. Well done, Will. You've successfully completed in the book, our famous segment in the book. You may now close your massive leather-bound book that you've been holding this whole time.
That was actually my note, so I do need to open that again.
Okay, so back to the film. All right, let's talk about some special effects.
Okay.
Going back to the scene where Tyrell is killed.
Yeah.
They spent... Okay, so Blade Runner had issues in production, right?
Yeah.
And they came in under budget, and they spent too long making it.
Right.
I think one of the reasons...
Did you say under budget?
Over budget.
Oh, that's good.
You didn't spend enough money! Go and spend some more! No, they came in quite a lot over budget, I think. But one of the reasons for this, I think, is because they spent $20,000 making a Tyrrell head so that Roy could crush it.
Yeah, they should have just crushed the real actor's head, shouldn't
well,
they, Joe?
they didn't use it.
Oh.
Roy didn't get on with it. And so they did just get the actor.
Roy didn't get on with it.
I don't understand what that means, but apparently he couldn't work with it.
Oh.
Even though it cost $20,000. So they just got the actor, they
killed him.
They ran some little tubes up behind his glasses. And so when he squeezed his hands over the eyes, these tubes would fire blood out into his hand. And that's how they did it. And with good editing and a lot of screaming, that effect looks really good.
Yes. I thought they were this was for thematic purposes, but it might have just been for practical purposes that they're not looking at the effect too much.
Yeah.
Because during that whole scene, you don't really see much of Tyrell. It's all about Batty,
Roy's,
and his response to it.
Yeah, I suppose. In an early draft, Tyrell was going to be killed, and then it was going to be revealed that he was a replicant, and that the real Tyrell had died several years before, and they didn't want to tell everyone because the stock price would drop.
I think it would plummet because I would assume that replicants aren't legally allowed to own companies. So
yeah. I'm glad they cut that out, because who would have explained that?
Well, they'd have, killed him, and then
He would have been very
found
confused.
his grave, I guess.
I suppose, yeah. Or just another Tyrell would have come out. When that one is deactivated, another one just activates. Yeah. He's like, why? I am a replicant Tyrell. The third one. And then he would do some horrible exposition.
Yeah. So in the film, there's this whole deal about is Deckard a replicant or not.
Yeah. Shall we?
I don't remember who it was. I think it might have been Ridley Scott.
Alright.
Actually said that he thought that Deckard was a replicant.
Okay. Behind the scenes, here's the deal. Ridley Scott did, when he was directing it, believe Deckard was a replicant. I mean, when you say believe, I mean it's his movie, so
yeah.
Surely what he says goes.
Yeah.
But Harrison Ford said he wasn't a replicant.
Yeah.
And both of the writers of the script said he was not a replicant. And, okay, the way I see it, right, is the film is about a human who is beginning to realise that the machines have this kind of empathy and these emotions, and that he is becoming an emotionless killer by dispatching them. So it's kind of like a role reversal of what you'd expect. So the themes don't work if Deckard is a replicant. He needs to be a human for that to work. Yeah. But when you watch the movie thinking Deckard is a replicant, it makes so much more sense. Yeah. Why, Gaff arrests him at the beginning? Because they don't know whether the memories have been planted or not in the replicant. Why, what else? Why Tyrell wants to see him and have a meeting with him and Rachel. It's not because he wants to assess Rachel. He wants to see if Deckard works properly because he's a replicant. Why, at the end, Gaff says, you've done a man's job, and then throws a gun to him. It's people think it's Deckard's gun, but I think it's Gaff's gun. Gaff was supposed to kill Deckard when he'd finished the job of killing the 4 replicants. It all comes into a sharper focus when he's a replicant.
You've basically just described my theory there.
Sorry.
Which I was going to do later.
But it doesn't thematically doesn't make any sense for him to be a replicant. Also, Harrison Ford...
You have literally described my entire hypothesis that I was going to say later.
I'm so
Thanks,
sorry.
Joe.
I'm really sorry.
Literally those exact examples as well. I have written down.
Oh, what a mess. I'm sorry. We haven't touched on the unicorn yet.
We haven't touched on the unicorn, which does not appear in the book or the original theatrical version.
No. So I think the upshot of that is that he is, but he shouldn't be.
I also think in the new one, I think they confirm he is, but I'm not sure. That hasn't come out yet when we're recording.
It also explains why Gaff just follows him around and doesn't know blade running.
Yes, so before you steal this as well, my explanation was that Gaff was basically supposed to be his handler.
Yeah.
Like, everyone knows he's a replicant, but Gaff is sent there basically to look after him and make sure he doesn't do anything.
Do you know the thing about the eyes?
The thing about the eyes?
All the replicants at one point have like a red glow in their eyes.
What?
There's it's like really noticeable with the owl that Tyrell has. Tyrell. Not Tyrell. Tyrell. Like the eyes glow red at one point.
Right.
And for all the replicants, that happens in the movie. So when Roy is killing Tyrell, he has like a red glow in his eyes. And when Rachel is taking the test, she has a red glow in her eyes. It's like, you know, like red eye in a old photograph, like that. And there's one point when Harrison Ford has it. But he like steps forward and like near Rachel, and it's like in one shot, I think. And Harrison Ford says he got in her light and that it wasn't intentional. But Scott says that it was. Yeah. But then there's also a thing, which is that all the human characters are called by their surnames, like Gaff and Holden and Deckard, and all the replicants are called by their first names, like Tyrell and Sebastian, and then you've got Pris and Zora and Roy and other first names. Let's talk about the ending then. Just the final scenes.
But whose final scene? Because I watched the theatrical version.
I don't mean like the very final scene. I mean the ending, as in the killing of Pris and then the fight in the house.
Oh, yeah.
I think Pris's death is the best death of all the replicants.
She kind of spasms.
It's very visceral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand why she kind of such a violent spasming after she dies.
She was mid-flip. It's probably something to do with that. But do you like that Roy saves Deckard at the end?
Yeah. So I think for that it's like what he wants out of life, or what Batty wants, is just for someone to understand the way he thinks.
Right.
And so he saves Deckard's life, and then makes him understand his way of thinking. And then he's kind of satisfied with life that finally somebody's listened to him, basically.
But he didn't know Deckard.
He got so shortly before the end of the film, he's kind of very much going insane.
Yeah.
But then for just the final few moments, he's very lucid.
That's really weird, isn't it? He's perfectly sane through the whole movie and kills loads of people. And then he goes mad and saves someone's life.
It's either because he's getting near his end of his life and he's sort of breaking down, essentially.
Yeah.
Or it could be basically he's come to Earth and is essentially living a very stressful life, basically.
Yep.
It's that, like, he's on the run all the time and
yeah.
Nobody looks at him as an equal. He's always looked down upon.
Yeah. So he knows he's, like, failing. And he stabs a nail through his hand to keep it working.
Yeah.
And then he sticks his head through a wall.
Yeah, he does do that.
And he says, "I'm going to have to kill you."
But that's because at that point he's kind of a bit nuts.
But I don't understand what happens then to make him change his mind between that bit and the end.
Well, I think it's because he's at the point where he could kill Deckard.
Yeah.
Or he could save Deckard.
He could just let Deckard die.
In that moment he makes a decision that no.
Yeah.
I'm going to
save this man's life. Yeah, I suppose. The other thing is, in that final fight, is why does Deckard, when given 10 seconds to run out of a building, why does he go up? Why doesn't he go out, like down and out? Because he knows the way into the building. He went into it.
He did.
Why doesn't he just leave? I would just like it if Batty was like, "Deckard, 7, 8, 9, 10, here I come!" And then he's like running around and Deckard's just like flies off in his car and he just watches out the window. And then he just
dies.
He just steals a pigeon and dies.
A pigeon?
It's a dove, I know. Apparently...
just a pigeon. The least sort of pure bird, I guess.
So apparently the pigeon, because it's raining in that scene... The
pigeon.
The dove.
The pigeon is like the opposite of a dove.
They're small birds of roughly the same size. So apparently the dove, its feathers were too wet to fly. So he made this like great speech, and he's like, "All those memories will be lost, like tears in the rain. Time to die." And he bows his head and releases the bird, and it just hopped off his hand and walked away. Which is why in like the shot of the bird flying off, it's not raining.
Yeah,
because apparently birds can't fly in the rain. Maybe it was an electric bird.
Yeah.
And like Dynamo and the sprinklers, it would have just burst into flames. The other thing about things being too wet to fly was the stuntman they had to do
He's too wet to fly.
They got a stuntman to do the jump across the rooftops that Deckard does when he like jumps and then falls and is clinging onto the sticky outy metally bit. And they got the stuntman and they put him in Deckard's coat. And then they were like, okay, this man is too dry. So they threw water at him. Okay. And the coat absorbed all this water. So he went to do this jump that he could do before and couldn't make it. And he missed, like injured his arm on the way down and just managed to cling on. And that's the shot you see in the movie. But I watched a couple of documentaries. Oh, no, I only watched one, but there were two. One of them it's called like On the Edge, the story of Blade Runner or something, or the making of Blade Runner. And the other one was called Dangerous Days, which was the working title for Blade Runner. Because the guy who was like, he found the book and he's like, this is a great book, but I can't pitch a movie called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. So yeah, they changed it to Dangerous Days and then to Blade Runner. I'd watch a movie called Dangerous Days.
Dangerous Dave.
Yeah, Dangerous Dave and an electric sheep. They just go on adventures together. So in the fight with Pris, they had a female gymnast who was there doing all the flips. And apparently Ridley Scott, because he's a bit of a perfectionist, he made her do all these jumps and flips and rehearsed it so many times that by halfway through the day, she just couldn't do it anymore. She was knackered. So they got in a male gymnast because it was the only one they could find at short notice to finish the day shooting.
Wait, so there are shots of Pris in the film?
And it's a male gymnast. Wow. Yep. But Ridley Scott's perfectionism, I think, is one of the reasons why there was such trouble behind the scenes. He is excessive.
Like, what trouble was there behind the scenes?
Well, he was doing like loads and loads of takes of everything, and that was why they went over time. But basically, Ridley Scott was more interested in like the art department and the set design and making the camera angles look all nice. And he was like, Harrison Ford, you do the acting, and didn't really talk to him. So I don't think they got on very well. Which is why I'm surprised that Ford came back. But then Ridley Scott didn't direct the sequel, did he? No, that's someone else.
I don't think so.
Do you think the sequel's going to be any good?
I'm generally pessimistic about these things.
Yeah.
Because every time I get excited for a film like this, I end up getting disappointed. So
yeah.
I really, really want it to be good, but I'm not allowing myself to get excited because I know I'll be disappointed.
Well, I think the most interesting thing about Blade Runner is the world, not like the characters. And I think if you're going to revisit something that has amazing characters but like a mediocre world, then you have to make another set of amazing characters.
Yeah.
But if you revisit something that has mediocre characters and an amazing world, then if you make amazing characters, then they fit in the amazing world and you have an amazing movie. So I'm actually excited to see this again. And to see the world with this decade's effects. Because with effects from the 80s, it was amazing. But imagine what they can do now. If they apply the same amount of, whatever the word is, rigor and dedication and other words that I'm stumbling for, to the process, then I think they can make something very good. Alright, I might consult my notes. I found a lot of very dull stuff. That they used a lot of matte paintings, and that the opening shot of Los Angeles was a massive miniature. And they used loads of like fiber optics and made it look all cool and then filled the whole studio with smoke. But they didn't like innovate anything really. They used a whole lot of stuff that already existed, like miniatures and matte paintings and like using multiple exposures. But they did it to a level that was
existing stuff very well.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Anything new.
Yeah, the last thing I've got here that I wanted to mention was that I think the producer said they wanted like obscure actors for the replicants. And I wrote down a quote. He said that that they're creatures who've been manufactured, and that's not much good if last week you saw them on television. Which was a great quote, and he did a voice like that. So, amusement. So, themes and thematics. And themantics, if any of those are words. What are the themes of Blade Runner, Will?
Empathy. That's like the main one in the book.
So you were saying there's some kind of frog religion.
So they have this thing called Mercerism.
Right.
And basically they say there was this guy named Mercer, and most people have this thing called an empathy box. And if you touch it, then I don't know why that's funny. If you gently caress your empathy box, then basically you share the emotions of everybody else who's also touching their empathy box.
Right.
And you also basically have this vision of Mercer climbing this mountain, and it's like people throwing rocks at him and things.
Right.
And you basically feel what he's feeling, and you kind of feel joined with him and things like that.
Okay. So you touch this in your moments of sadness and downheartedness?
Well, the thing is, when Deckard gets the goat, and him and his wife are like, yay, we have a real animal.
Yeah.
Deckard's wife's first response is to say that they have an obligation to share their feelings of happiness with everybody else.
Oh, I
she wants
see.
to use the box.
Okay.
All of the humans in the book seem very, I don't know, like shallow.
Right.
They have these things called mood organs, which basically can change your emotions. But they could also change it to like really specific things.
Right.
Like there's one setting on it which is makes you want to watch television regardless of what's on it. Things like that. There's another one which is you immediately recognize that your husband is correct about everything. The whole idea. I had this phrase so succinctly beforehand that I can't. Can we like stop for a bit and come back?
Sure. We went and watched Takeshi's Castle.
We did. We watched Takeshi's Castle.
No context required.
It's a great TV show.
It's the best. If you don't know what it is,
Google it. Watch it on YouTube. It's amazing.
We will inevitably talk about it one day. Anyway.
Themes.
So you were telling me, just told me about the empathy box.
Empathy, yeah, they have an empathy box. But there's this whole thing about, in the book, that there's so much fakery. Like, they can have fake animals and they can have fake people, essentially. There's this whole struggle about what makes a human, you know?
Yeah.
And so the one thing they have over everything else is their empathy. And so they kind of make it into this pseudo-religion.
Yeah.
But then you get the impression that the only time they really feel emotions is when they use their mood organ, and the only time they really feel empathy is when they're using their empathy box.
Right.
And the rest of the time they're very sort of basically like androids, essentially.
Okay.
They rely on these artificial things to give them their stimulation, essentially. Yeah. And so then I always think that from the book, basically Deckard is supposed to represent kind of the only real human.
And he's the mad one in this world.
Because he is the only one. He kind of starts off the same.
Right.
Like very kind of like closed off to emotions and things like that.
Yeah.
But then he goes on, and I told you he tests that other bounty hunter and realizes that his response to killing an android is the odd one.
Yeah.
In that he feels bad about it.
Yeah.
And like gradually as the book goes on, he kind of becomes more and more sort of empathic and emotional, where all the other humans aren't like that.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the book, he's kind of what you would expect a human to be like in a world where most humans aren't.
Oh, well, there you are. No, I think that's what the movie was trying to do, but they didn't do it as well. You mentioned that he had some, like, epiphanies, some revelations?
Yeah. Yeah, so Mercerism, it turns out that... So there's this... that's another relevant thing that kind of supports what I was saying.
Yeah.
There's this TV show called Buster Friendly.
Right.
And it's clearly very, like, corny and cheesy. But everybody watches it and everybody laughs at it.
Okay.
So it's like they're watching this thing that clearly isn't funny or clearly isn't entertaining, but they still just watch it and laugh at it because it's kind of what they're expected to do, but they don't really feel anything from it.
So they are kind of experiencing emotion the same way as
the androids do, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a very sort of intellectual thing rather than actually feeling things. And then he exposes Mercerism as a fraud.
Right.
In the vision they have when they hold the empathy box of climbing the mountain didn't really happen. And there's the group of androids, they say to Isidore, who's with them, they say, oh, now you're no different from us because now you don't have empathy either.
It sounds good. I might give it a read. Even though you told me, it still sounds really good. Would you recommend it to people?
Yeah.
How do they do the test in the book? Is it?
It's
similar?
basically the same. Okay. The way they describe it is more or less the same.
I think that's one of the best things about the movie, and some of the best scenes are when they're doing the point count test. That machine. I think one of the strengths of the film is that they've made this world, and they've made like vehicles, and they've made machines, and they've made all these things, but
it's all very normal.
Yeah, and there's never like a point where the camera focuses on it, and it's like, look how amazing this is. Yeah. So like Back to the Future, the first time we see the DeLorean, it comes out of that trailer and you see the back, and then it goes down the side and you get a shot of the headlight, and then the door and you see inside. It's like, wow, this is amazing. But the spinner, you just see it in passing. There's not like some great big hero shot of, look how amazing this thing is.
But I suppose in Back to the Future, that the whole point is that the time machine is something special.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just pointing it out as an example. Because, you're right. In Back to the Future, it's supposed to be focused on. But in Blade Runner, nothing is supposed to be amazing. It's supposed to be an old future, a used future, I think they call it. But that's another thing I like. Ridley Scott is amazing at building a world. Ridley Scott, first director we've discussed twice.
Oh, yeah. Alien in this.
Yeah. Do you think they're set in the same universe?
What, Alien and Blade Runner?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Because in Alien, Earth is like fairly well inhabited, isn't it?
So...
Well, certainly in the book for Blade Runner, they give you the impression that the ultimate goal is that everybody emigrates off of Earth.
Yeah, and you get that in the movie as well, don't you?
Only a little bit, because you see like billboards, but it's never really explained.
Well, JF lives in an empty apartment block, and he said he couldn't leave Earth because of his disease.
Yeah.
But in our Alien episode, you mentioned that there were some screens.
Yes, they used... I completely forgot to look into that one.
So it's the screen in Alien. It's when the arm releases the Nostromo from like the thing it's carrying.
And in Blade Runner, it's when he's landing the car. Yeah. So they use some of the same images on their screens.
And apparently on the... I don't count this at all. But on the extras for the Blu-ray for Prometheus, there's an entry or a letter or an email or something from Wayland, who's the guy who made the androids in the Alien universe, saying that his mentor was a guy who lived atop a pyramid and like acted like a god, and he'd also built these robots that were almost human. Things didn't go too well for him, and it's implied to be Tyrell. But I don't think that like you're going to get Ripley meeting up with Deckard.
No.
Because these are set hundreds of years apart, or 100 and something years apart. But I feel like the natural progression from like colonies starting off Earth, and in both universes you've got almost human androids. Even though I think the replicants are more human than...
Yeah, and especially because the Rosen Association or Tyrell Corporation, whatever you want to go with, are clearly very rapidly making progress in making them more human.
Yeah.
You would think that by the time of Alien they'd have done better.
They cracked it.
Especially because in Alien, the synthetics, once you like cut them or whatever, they're clearly like wires and circuits inside.
Yeah.
Whereas the replicants, even if you cut them, they have blood and things.
I was going to say, because in the film we don't get any indication that they have anything inside them that isn't normal. So that they're not like Terminators, where it's like a metal skeleton with flesh over the top.
No. In the film, obviously, they go and hunt down Tyrell and kill him. Do you sympathize with them? Like, do you ascribe their motivation to desperation, or do you ascribe it to they're just soulless and don't feel anything and don't care?
So, alright, so it's clear they want to get to Tyrell to get an extended life.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why he has to kill everyone he meets. It seems excessive. So he kills Sebastian.
Yeah.
When he really didn't need to. Sebastian posed no threat to him at all.
Which kind of implies that he enjoys killing people, because if it was just a lack of empathy, you would only kill someone if they sort of got in your way, and it was just sort of easier to kill them. You know?
Well, I suppose...
But he doesn't really get anything out of killing Sebastian.
It would leave no loose ends, I suppose. Sebastian couldn't then go to the Blade Runners and tell...
Well,
but then it's obvious.
Everybody already knows about him and they know it was him. You know?
Yeah. I can't work out whether it's an emotional, I can't get what I want, so I'll just kill you. It's more with Tyrell. Tyrell tells him that, like, essentially, you're the best thing I've ever made, but we can't enhance your lifespan because you're already going.
Yeah.
We can't, like, adjust you now. So then Roy kills him, and that seems like an emotional response. Like, oh, you can't give me what I want. But, because it's not the logical thing to do.
lot of imagery of Tyrell as like being a god,
Yeah.
And like his creations and things like that. There's also, I think, a lot of like he's very detached from his like he creates these things, but then he's kind of free of the consequences of it.
Yeah.
Because he just sits atop his pyramid and he's like the kind of ultimate kind of ivory tower type guy.
Yeah, he is.
Sitting alone in his tower and completely isolated with all the stuff he's done.
I also think it's weird that he builds Rachel and she goes missing for like half a day.
Yeah.
And the response is, oh, kill her. if you find her, just kill her immediately. I think he deserved it. He had it coming. So, yeah, going back to your question. It doesn't always seem like the logical thing to do. Like when Leon killed Holden, or almost killed Holden, almost immediately. He was like 2 questions into the test. But it seems very emotional because the dialogue before is like, oh, my mother, I'll tell you about my mother.
Yeah.
And then shoots him. But then you could say that for Leon, the logical thing to do was to shoot him before he got too far into the test and realised he was an android. Even though Holden, if you watch that scene carefully, has his gun out under the table. As if he already knows that it's coming. Yeah. It's a tough one. Do you think at the end he had emotion, Roy?
I think certainly Roy, towards the end, is on some sort of higher level than the others. Yeah.
When he's in the lift leaving the pyramid, there's a really good shot of him almost reacting.
Yeah. Shall I tell you what the author and
what
he's got?
Maybe I'll be convinced by that.
So the author, Philip K. Dick, his exact quote was basically that he thought that replicants are deplorable. They are cruel, cold, and heartless.
Right.
So his attitude is very much,
they're
not sort of doing it because they're sort of, desperate little people struggling to survive. They're doing it because they don't care.
Yeah.
But apparently Scott's attitude was of them as some sort of superhuman.
Right.
And like kind of some almost like divine entity. He had this kind of very kind of romantic view about them, apparently.
Huh. So they were better than us in some way. Because
that seems to be Scott's view.
Well, the replicants was better physically because they were faster and stronger and whatnot. So could it be that they're better emotionally and they don't do irrational things because of emotion like humans do?
And Scott possibly views that as an advantage.
Yeah, because I can see why you'd say that was an advantage, but in the case of the replicants in the film, it just means they do a lot of murders. But then at the end, him saving Deckard, that doesn't seem like an emotional response. It seems emotional when he breaks his fingers.
Especially because he's clearly doing that as revenge for his...
And then letting him go and counting down just so he can spend a moment with Pris's body, that's an emotional thing to do and not a logical thing. Yeah. And howling like a wolf for some reason through that entire scene.
Do you think the point is that by the end of the film, both Deckard and Batty are finally truly human?
I think it's supposed to be that by the end of the film, Batty is human and emotional and irrational, and Deckard is just a machine, and he'll walk in there and he'll shoot Pris with no remorse, and then he'll attempt to kill Batty, and then at that point when Roy saves him...
No, I mean then, do you think when Batty saves him, Deckard kind of changes his mind?
I think that's when Deckard realises that he begins to empathise with these creatures and realises what he's become.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what it was aiming for. So I only got that the third time I watched it, and after thinking about it for ages. Does that mean the film's good or the film's bad? Because
I guess
I didn't get it first time, but is that my fault? Maybe.
I don't know.
Should we wrap up?
All right.
Best effect, worst effect.
Can I have the opening shot as best effect?
Yes.
Am I allowed that? Okay. Well,
I was going to take it as well.
That's what I knew you were going to. So that's why I said it.
Now I know how you feel.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take.
J.F. Sebastian's little dudes.
His tiny people. No. I'll take his egg boiler.
His egg boiler?
Yeah. The Pris shoves her hand
in.
No, I'm not taking that. I like the spinner. The spinner's good, but I don't think it's there enough to be the best effect. I definitely think the best effect is the opening shot.
Well, you can't have it.
I'm just clawing for something else.
You could have the picture enhancement scene where he's on his computer.
That is pretty good. Oh, I do like the spinner, but again, the spinner's a good movie vehicle, but they don't make a big deal of it. I feel like if this had been more of a studio movie, he would have got in the car and be like, we're ready to take off in the spinner, and Gaff would have been like, yes we are, and then there would have been a gratuitous sideways shot, and then a shot from the front as it flew over the camera, and then they would have sold lots of toys of it. And Rachel, he'd have got the white camp machine out, and Rachel would have been, what's that? And he'd been like, it's a white camp machine. And he'd have pressed the button, and there would have been like a
lots
cut.
Of flashing lights and things.
Yeah. And there'd be a cut of like that bit clicking up and the arm clicking out, and then it like focuses and zooms in. Yeah. But it's good because no one really pays attention. I might take the white camp machine, actually.
Okay.
Possibly just because of like, I think the scenes enhance it, but it is like a really threatening thing.
Mm.
No, I actually do like that. I'm taking that.
Okay.
Although the best effect is definitely the first shot of the movie.
Worst effect. Because there aren't really any like really big effects.
Yeah.
It's hard to say a worst effect, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Because there aren't really any.
I think some of the flying cars are a little bit off in a few shots. I noticed it the first time I watched it, but I didn't think, oh, meh, I'll be writing a strongly worded letter, Mr. Scott. No, it didn't bug me that much. It's just something I noticed.
Mm.
For the most part, they're really good, but there's a few that are a bit rough. And even like the giant...
I'm going to go with JS automatons for the worst effect, just because they're a bit strange.
Very odd. Yeah, fair enough. One of them is dressed as a bear.
Yeah, one of them's dressed as like some soldier or something.
Yep, like a tiny little Napoleon with a really long nose. He has an ostrich in there for some reason. There's in a bow tie. Just the fact that he says they're his friends.
Joe could nearly buy an ostrich, by the way, instead of a goat. Just so you know.
There's a bit in the movie where he walked past some ostriches. So, okay, here's my question. Because I thought about this, and then I looked it up, and it took me forever, but I found it in it eventually. There's like, do you remember it? One shot where Deckard's in the market going to find out about the snakeskin scale, and some ostriches walk past him.
Yeah.
Real ostriches or fake ostriches?
You mean like...
Not like replicants. I mean, did they use real ostriches, or did they build ostriches?
I reckon they're probably real.
So, for one shot, I thought they'd be real, but they built some mechanical ostriches. And they're in the film for like 5 seconds.
I guess that's because in the film they're probably mechanical ostriches as well.
That's a really good point. But I think they're the ones that pop up in JF's place.
Hmm.
Okay, worst effect? You just did that.
Yep.
I'm paying attention. Jennifer Lawrence.
Are you saying Jennifer Lawrence is your worst effect?
No. No, my worst effect is some of the dodgy flying cars.
Oh, yeah, okay. Now on to the best section.
Yes. We didn't even mention the massive billboards, but there's not much to say about them.
There's some massive billboards flying around.
Good job.
Let's get on with the best
Anyway,
section.
Jennifer Lawrence. So, okay, obvious choices.
Would she be real or would she be a replicant?
That's a really good question.
She'd be real.
Are the replicants actually... Are the replicants actually a replica of someone?
So in the book they mentioned that there's like several... So like there's like... there's Rachel and Pris. They mentioned they're like the same model.
Yeah.
And also they kind of mentioned a couple of times that people could potentially be replaced by replicants.
Okay.
So it might be.
Some, possibly.
Best section.
Alright, yeah, sorry. I keep getting distracted.
Stop getting distracted.
Alright, so would you have Jennifer Lawrence as Rachel?
No.
Would you have Jennifer Lawrence as Pris?
No. No, she dies. What are you doing?
I'm thinking of all the female characters I can. That's all 2 of them that I had.
Who have we got?
They're the 2 female main lady people. Because we always start with the 2 female main lady people.
The women characters and decide that none of them are suitable, so...
Please, Captain.
If I woke up, I got little people. Gaff.
It's a shame she won't live.
But then again, who does?
Who does? Not you, Deckard, you're a replicant.
Oh, the guy who makes ice. No, because then she'd have to wear like a big coat, and I don't want to...
I could see her in a big fur coat.
I don't want to dress her up too much, you know.
It could be a really warm room instead of a really cold one.
Yeah, that works.
And then she gets intimidated. And
by someone putting random eyes.
That's not a logical thing to do. I think Leon was nuts.
Yeah.
I think he had a screw loose, probably literally.
Yeah. What else have we got?
We didn't even talk about him. He's a great character. We just make eyes. We just do eyes.
We just make eyes.
You're next to 6.
I made your eyes. J.F. Sebastian, no.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not.
He's a likeable character, though.
Definitely not Tyrell, because he dies.
Yeah.
That's what Sebastian, I guess. But lots of people die in this.
Who lives to the end?
Deckard.
Rachel.
Police captain presumably survives.
Gaff.
The guy who makes eyes presumably also survives. I don't remember him dying.
They didn't show it if he did. They probably just filled him with eyes.
Yeah.
They just drowned him in a vat of eyes. Oh, that's a horrible thought.
If we go with Gaff,
then
she could kind of be...
Gaff's a bit of a jerk, though.
He is.
There's that bit where Harrison Ford's just eating, and then Gaff just comes and whacks him on the back with a stick.
That does happen, yeah.
It's like he really doesn't want that job. Which would make sense if he was a Blade Runner looking after a replicant.
Yeah.
He really wouldn't want that job.
If we switch the eye-making scene to a really warm room instead of a really cold room,
alright
then she can be the guy who makes eyes.
She does only get one scene then. But then who else? She could be that Japanese woman who eats pills on a massive billboard.
Oh, yeah!
She's in there quite a few times.
She is in there a lot.
Apparently she's taking birth control medication. And she's thrilled about it.
She's really happy about it. That's a tough one then.
It's Jennifer Lawrence, but instead of just eating a pill, she's eating a different food in every shot. So she's got like just a bit of sushi and then she eats it.
But then again, the scene with the guy who makes eyes is a fairly long scene.
True.
I reckon the total screen time is higher for that guy than the billboard lady.
Yeah, surely. You're probably right.
So I'm going to go with that, but it's a really warm room instead of a really cold room.
Or she could be the voice of the blimp, telling everyone to leave
Earth. That is the...
same lady, isn't it?
Same lady.
I think.
Well, it depends which advert it is, because there's just another one.
Yeah. Jennifer Lawrence takes over every advert.
No.
When you see a billboard, it just had Jennifer Lawrence's face on it. And each time she's eating a different thing. And then she smiles at the camera, as if this is the best thing she's ever eaten.
This is the best thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
No. The eyes guy. But a really warm room instead of a really cold room.
I'm enjoying that, like, as we go on, we're tweaking it more and more.
We just completely change the film.
Eventually we'll be like, okay, the Avengers. Jennifer Lawrence is the villain, but also Nick Fury. And there's a scene in the middle where they meet up. And it turns out they're long-lost twist sisters. But Iron Man, halfway through, is killed. And then at the end fight, he pulls up his mask and it's Jennifer Lawrence.
What are we going to do when we do a film that has Jennifer Lawrence in?
That's a really good question. It will break the system.
I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
What if every actor was Jennifer
Lawrence?
That's the rule. If Jennifer Lawrence is in the film once, we upgrade to everyone.
Alright, so we're going with the eyes guy.
Yep.
But a warm room instead of a cold room.
Yep. But she's still in a massive fur coat at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
It's like cooling. And then like Leon rips it in half.
Amazing.
Good job.
What's our next?
Our final section, I believe, is...
I only have the attention span for one section after that.
I've forgotten what it is. This is terrible.
Leaderboards.
It's leaderboards. Wake up, Joe. I know you're a massive fan of Blade Runner.
I am.
You are.
It's going right at the top.
Right at the top?
Yeah.
You think it's better than Alien?
Yeah.
See, I was thinking about where to put it, and I'm like, do I like it more than Alien? I don't think I do. I think I prefer Alien.
So where's it going?
So, it's better than Batman Begins. It's simple, Blade Runner.
It's as simple or as complicated as you want to make it.
Yeah. But I still don't think on the surface level the story is that compelling.
No, I agree.
Or that I don't know if Harrison Ford was the right choice for Deckard. I don't want to say...
Michael Caine.
I don't want to say... Hashtag Michael Caine for Deckard. So, I'm going to do a few tests. I'm going to ask you a few questions.
I'm going to put you in a few social situations, Master Wayne.
Yep, now then. Reaction time is a factor in these tests, so I want you to answer these questions as fast as possible. So, your son shows you his butterfly collection, right? And he shows you the killing jar.
I'd
right?
say
and
to
so,
my son,
I'm asking a question.
You're a man, why do you have a butterfly collection?
Very good. I think it showed me. your birthday.
Oh, is it?
Happy birthday. And someone brings you a calfskin wallet.
You didn't bring me a present. It's my birthday.
I'm here to do a test on you. Not here to join in your birthday revelry, sir.
Are you giving me a calfskin wallet?
Depends on your answer to this question.
Oh. So. I would just gratefully accept it.
Well, you're a replicant.
That's the way I don't get a calfskin wallet.
Yes, you lose. Yes, Michael Caine Videca. No, I think Harrison Ford... I don't think it's anything wrong with his performance. I just think it's because he comes with the...
He is Harrison Ford.
He comes with the trappings of Han Solo and Indiana Jones, and you think of this charismatic all-action guy, and he's not that at all.
Oh. So where's it going on the leaderboard?
Alright, I'm putting it below Alien.
So second?
Third.
So, because your Alien is second because you don't understand what makes a good film. Okay.
I think Alien's better. I think it's more focused. I think it's more enjoyable on a surface level than Blade Runner is. Even though Blade Runner has excellent deeper themes. Yes, I just don't think it's as good on the surface.
Okay. I agree that it's not as good on the surface, but
you give more credence to the deeper themes.
Yeah. I listened to my English teacher, Joe.
Mr. Dowling will be proud.
Mr. Dowling will be proud.
Alright, we there?
Well, I used to do my outro, don't I?
Yeah, I think you do.
Do you want me to do it in the...
It's entirely up to you. We can have the dulcet tones of William Wilson.
The dulcet tones?
I don't know what that means. It sounds good though, doesn't it?
It's like
the dull tones.
The dull tones.
Yeah, the standard William Wilson.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Practically Effective. You can email us at practicallyeffective@gmail.com. We have a Facebook, Practically Effective, and a Twitter at PracticallyFX. And you can listen to us on the SoundCloud, the YouTube, and also on the iTunes.
Yes, if you have a amazing theory about Blade Runner, we'd love to hear it.
Also, if you have suggestions for films first, then
we'll take good films, we'll take bad films.
We'll take terrible films.
We'll do terrible films first.
Next we're doing
next special. Hulks. Yeah, it's all the Hulks that we could find, probably.
So
because another movie's coming out with the Hulk in it. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode quite a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.